All right, guys, this is Mobile Gamer Nerd, and we are back with another Raid Shadow Legends free-to-play mystery shard only run video. Today, we're going to just do a first-time look at all the campaign heroes in Raid Shadow Legends, and they're all the rare ones that you can farm, you can level, you can get skills done. We're just going to take a first look at them, and the thing is that some of them I have level 60, some of them I have not maxed yet. We're just going to move forward and just show you the basics. And then eventually, once I finish maxing out the last like 4 or 5, whatever it is, heroes that we're trying to finish, then we'll do a full video and really go into each one. Most of the heroes that are level 60 here, actually, I think probably all of them that are level 60 are all going to have their own videos that have a champion spotlight. You can check that out in my playlists, and that is fine. But let's start it off and let's go in and check out every single one of these guys so you know what you're kind of looking for when you're farming these heroes. And if it's your first time playing through, at least you have an idea of which heroes you want to kind of use and which ones maybe if you accidentally pull one on a run while you're trying to level up. So let's start from the first area. So Karna Castle has a has two heroes that are actually pretty good. Valerie is the first one. She is very weird in the sense that she's a terrible hero early on. She's not very good for 4-man teams. I mean, she's okay in some 4-man content, but she's mainly a fifth, and the reason you bring her in is because she can extend buffs, she can lower buffs, and she can do shields and heals. And it's kind of really good for getting through some of the early game dungeons and keeping your team alive when your guys aren't really strong and you haven't found some gear yet. She is pretty good when you put her into a healing set or a HP set. I have her in bolster because it actually heals her while it puts the shield up on everybody for each round as they come by. She's really good for helping you get through waves in some of the harder dungeons where the enemies are getting a little bit stronger and you haven't quite found that, that way to completely crowd control them. Like someone like Yakaro, who's a legendary, he can crowd control an entire room, but unfortunately, you're not going to have him early on. So she basically keeps it so that your main team, who although cannot, do any crowd control, they can still do damage, and she can keep you guys alive while you do that. And she'll put up the shield every single round if you put her in a shield set or a bolster set, and that'll keep your team alive. I mean, she's basically a one-hit, hitter on her A1. She has increased duration of buffs on allies for 1 turn and decreased the duration of debuffs on allies by 1 turn, and also does an increased attack. So it's not really necessary to have the increased attack. It's just more for the increasing of your buffs. She works really well in the faction wars because we put a bunch of heroes that do a ton of buffs on the team, and then she increases them. So essentially, I'll get like 2 to 3 turns on every single buff that we put up, and by the time they wear off, we're already ready to get into the next set of buffs. And then she has her shield and heal. Now, I wouldn't build her first out of the starting 5. She is one of the starting 5 heroes that are in my video, also in Champion Spotlight. I wouldn't build her first. She'd be the last one of the 5 that you build, and that's because, like I said, she doesn't get good until the end. And the reason she doesn't get good is because of her healing, which it actually scales according to the actually heals each ally according to the number of buffs they are currently under. But the shield itself depends on this champion's level. So you're not going to really start seeing that shield do much help until you get her to 60, because obviously that's the highest level she can go. We did put her in a Phantom Touch Blessing, and she's got her basic masteries. Like I say, we're not going to go too crazy on this because most of them don't have masteries, but mainly, you want to get her in the HP set in the beginning. Bolster, shield, regeneration. These are all basically her, bread and butter to keep her alive. You want her defense to be reasonably high and her HP to be high as well. That way she can stay alive and keep everyone moving. All right, the next one you get from the castle. We are going to find him. He's towards the bottom, probably. Actually, no, he might not be. I have to dig through and find all my heroes now. They're everywhere. It actually goes by. Why am I having so much trouble finding this guy? So the next one in there would be Conqueror. I may have thrown him into a. Oh, here we go. I'm like, where is he? Conqueror. Basically, he is amazing in the early game, and the reason I say that is because his single target damage is reasonably high for a rare, and the other thing is that he can remove buffs. So the only thing is you're not going to have a lot of accuracy in the beginning, so it's going to be a little tough. So what I did in the beginning was I just built him in straight attack. Right now, he's in a poison set. It's only because the stats matched. It gave him enough attack to do some damage. We're going to eventually switch him out. I wouldn't leave him in this set. There is a champion spotlight on him, but I think from before we actually switched him into this. But his skills are actually reasonable. He attacks one enemy 1 time, so it's good for Fire Knight early on. Attacks one enemy and removes 2 random buffs from the target, and he can actually do a block revive. So you could use him in the Ice Golem to take down the little side enemies and block revive them, so he can't revive them anymore. So he is really good early on. I wouldn't recommend going too crazy on him. As you can see, he's like one of my lower power heroes, 39,000. My average is between 50 and 70. And we just took him away. He's not super useful later on, but early in the game, you're going to see he's going to be really good. He's great for arena for taking down Deliana. I used to use him really early on to kill Deliana because he's the correct affinity and he can do a ton of damage to her like really quickly. And he can remove that stupid strengthen buff from her. So there is some use to him. His masteries are basic. I mean, he's down to War Master and some other stuff. Like I said, artifacts, I would just get him into some attack gear. This is just a waste. I would probably like later game, like first you would do ignore defense, you would do attack, you would do like, those kinds of things. I would probably maybe throw him in a perception set here and there just to get him some accuracy, which would be very nice. Crit damage is obviously really good on him. Anything that can make him do a ton of damage. And I think you'll be able to keep him alive a little bit longer if you have some support heroes. Otherwise, he does have very low defense and gets killed quickly. So just be aware of that when you bring him into Ice Golem. Armiger does become a better a choice for that because he's a defense hero. But hey, he's not bad early on, and I would definitely consider building him. And we're going to go one by one into the campaign battle. Campaign. Boom. Here we go. Say, there you go. You can farm Valerie, and you can farm Mr. Conqueror. The next area is the sewers of Arnok, which will give us Mr. Skullsworn. Now we actually just got him, I think, started. I don't think we really got really far in him right now. He's probably the least useful hero out of all of the ones in the beginning. That's him. We have him in some random gear. He's not great. We've started leveling his skills up by farming him. He's actually the last hero that we have not maxed his skills on. So we have every other hero from campaign with their skills maxed and at least started. He's the last one left. We'll get him done pretty quickly. We don't have any masters on him, obviously. He's whatever. His skills are kind of weird. He has an attack 2 times, and he has a 20% chance of placing an extra hit. It's good for Fire Knight, I guess, and then he has a 30% increased speed buff and a counterattack buff only on him, so he's very selfish, and he fills his turn meter by 15% on critical hits, which basically means you need crit, and that's it, and then he's going to have a counterattack. So he's kind of a one-note kind of dude. He doesn't really do too much. I mean, he's got a speed lead and faction crypts, which is, I guess, useful, but he's not one of the best heroes. He probably has not very good reviews. Actually, he has better reviews than I would have anticipated. But yeah, he's probably the least buildable one. You're going to be farming this area a lot in the early game. So he's probably someone you're going to end up using as food to max your main team. And then eventually you'll come back and max him. But either way, he's not that great. He's kind of a whatever hero. I probably would spend not a lot of time on him. The next area, all right, after the sewers, is for Sorceress. Now, we did just max all of her skills out recently, so she is done. We haven't gotten too far in masteries, just threw some stuff on here. She's going to basically be in a normal attack versus accuracy mastery setup. It's not going to be anything crazy. We have her in lifesteal right now, but we're probably just going to boost her into some attack stuff. Her skills are pretty cool. I mean, she attacks one enemy. She has a 30% chance of placing a 15% decreased speed debuff for 2 turns. So that's something you could definitely use. Even late game, honestly, a decreased speed is good. You can use it on Iron Twins. I mean, it's for 2 turns, so as long as she can land it. So she definitely needs accuracy. She attacks 2 times and has an extra chance of placing a hit. So yeah, that could be good for Fire Knight as well. And then she attacks 3 times at random. Each hit has a 30% chance of placing a 60% decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. So this is actually pretty good for early game Fire Knight. I would probably consider using her if I wasn't using a turn meter manipulation team, because this is actually really good for that. You can just use this to decrease speed when the shield's down, and every skill she has does multiple hits, right? Except for this one, attacks one enemy. So this is multiple hit, this is multiple hit. So she only has one attack that doesn't do multiple hits. But yeah, I would build her. She's pretty good. I haven't put her to 60 yet. It's not because I don't want to. It's just, like I said, it's just time, energy, which hero is more important right now. But if I had started the game earlier on and I had pulled her early, I probably would have 60'd her a lot quicker than some of the other ones that I have now. Honestly, I'd probably put her above Conqueror, conceivably. Depends on which heroes you have early on. And that is from, let's go into here, campaign. That is from the Catacombs. So there she is, right there, Sorceress. And then we go into the Durham Forest and Felwyn's Gate. So now Durham Forest has 2 heroes that are really good. Spirit Host is probably one of the best heroes in the game. I mean, even for rares. It's just not even just rares, like epics. She's really good. It's surprisingly how much I use her. And Greybeard, who honestly wasn't that great in the beginning, but now actually is pretty useful. We do use him in the faction crypts and a couple of other places. He's got some freezes, but let's look at them and see where we're at. We have 60'd both of them. But let's see. Let's go in here. Boom, boom, boom. All right, so here's Spirit Host. Spirit Host, awesome. We have a great champion spotlight on her. We have her in a bolster set. You can put her in the shield set early on, but speed is important. She's going to be on your arena team, and she's really good because she has an attack up, say 50% attack for all allies, and she has a A1 that attacks and heals by the damage, and she can remove and block debuffs at the same time in one skill, which makes her really good, and she has speed in all battles, which means you can use her in the arena, and she will actually help you get through some of the early game arenas when you don't have a speed lead, unless you were lucky enough to get Wukong or one of those other new heroes that have tons of speed on their arena lead. Uh, Masteries are just basically healing and War Master. It's your basic stuff, nothing crazy here. She doesn't need accuracy, which is actually really nice, and we do need to get her some crit. We've had her built this way for a while now, but I would definitely build her. She is part of the starting 5, which is one of the heroes that you can use early on, no matter what you're doing, and she will help you get through some of that early game nightmarish battles that go on. And then you move into Mr. Graybeard. Oh, no, that's the wrong one. Wrong Skinwalker. Graybeard. Once again, he's really good for early game. You can definitely get some stuff going on with him. He's got a provoke on his A1, so he can provoke some annoying enemies. He's got an attack on all enemies that does a freeze, which is really good for some crowd control if you don't have any early on. And he does have a shield and a counterattack to keep himself alive. He actually is one of the heroes that got us through the Skinwalker's faction crypt, and he is. It's mainly because he's defensive and he can do all. He can get through that and not die. He's a defense hero, so you do want to build his defense up high. We put him in a freeze set because that way he can freeze getting attacked and when he's attacking. So he's basically a double-edged sword. If you try to hit him, he's going to freeze you, and if he hits you, you're going to freeze. So very good stuff going on with him. Really good for early game. You can definitely use him in some areas where you just want to kind of provoke some guys or do some extra healing. When you move into Felwyn, right? I think the next one here is Rocktooth. Now you get him for free, so you can build him right from the beginning. He's definitely not terrible. He's not the best here in the world. We haven't really, maxed him yet. He's level 50. We were working on him. We just kind of fell off from it and stopped building him. His skills are whatever. I mean, he has an attack and he can place an extra hit if it's critical. He can attack all enemies, increase crit rate for everybody, and he has a heal reduction by 100%. So that's good for Fire Knight if early game. If you're having trouble with the shield, you can just put the heal reduction on him, and then that way you don't have to worry about him healing every single round. And he also has a crit rate up, which is very good. And it's an AoE attack, so that's good. You can use him in Spider. You can use him in a couple different things early game. I haven't built him to 60, so I don't know if he's too useful for later on. We may build him for Ogre and Tribes because I think we're having a little bit of trouble in there, so he might be someone that could be useful there for some heal reduction or possibly just for giving a little more damage to the rest of my team. All right. So that's Rocktooth. He's not, like I said, he's kind of an okay hero. Let's go into campaign again and check out and see where we're at. So now we're in Palace of Arabia and Tilshire. Palace of Arabia gives you 2 high elves. We get Avenger and we get Eris, which are actually reasonable heroes. We'll look at them in a second. And then in Tilshire, we get Goremask, who is a little bit of a weirdo. All right, so let's look at them. I actually don't think I pulled out Avenger, so we might have to go into the vault and find her. Avenger, where are you? I don't even know if I had her to 50, to be honest. She's pretty good. Here we go. There's Avenger. Boop. Done. All right, so now Eris. I have actually not done a champion spotlight on her yet. She's good for unkillable teams in clan boss. She has a counterattack, which is kind of nice. Here we go. Grants next turn if target's killed, and she can also remove a random debuff from all allies. Has a 60% chance of placing a 30% increased speed on all allies, which is really good, and counterattacks when an ally is attacked. She also has speed in dungeons by 16%, which could be very useful for some dungeons, but she's a single target hero. She's a single target node. She does have the increased speed, so if you want a hero who attacks and does speed up to kind of put it with another hero, like say you had her at Apothecary, you could put those two together as having a double speed kind of tuning going on to get some more attacks. But otherwise, I mean, I haven't seen her as being super useful for my run. I feel like she's going to be more useful for someone else's run who's using more heroes that can kind of take advantage of her skill set more than I can. But yeah, I mean, she's not terrible. I can't even remember the last time I actually used her, and she's been built for a while. So just be aware that she's very specific in her needs and where she's useful. Avengers a little bit more useful, I would say, but still, we just haven't leveled her yet. She has an attack on one enemy, has a 30% chance of doing decreased defense for 2 turns, which is nice. Attacks random 2 times and has an extra 15% chance of inflicting a critical hit. And she has a attack that always crits. on one enemy. So she's probably really good for bosses. She's really good for taking out one enemy at a time. Definitely would want to build her in some more like, attack gear or something. Like we have her in some quick gear and some perception. I don't even think she needs the perception, right? We'll decrease defense. That's really it. Otherwise, I would honestly just say screw it and put her in a bunch of attack gear and just kind of go with it and let her do as much damage as she can because she does hit reasonably hard. And she is kind of badass looking. She's got these swords. I mean, I think she has the same model as a few other heroes, but she's definitely got some. She's got some cannons. I'll tell you that much. But either way, she's a pretty good hero, and I think you could do some really good damage with her. Goremask. Surprisingly enough, we haven't built him yet, but he seems interesting. He attacks 2 times on his A1. He attacks one enemy and damage increases by 20% if the attack is critical, which is good, which means you can just, get another 20% damage if you crit. So make sure you put crit on him. But this is where it gets interesting. He can actually ignore shield and block damage buffs, which is really good because that's actually something that can become more annoying later on, which is probably why we didn't usually build her early because that doesn't come up as much early in the game. But now that we're into like Doom Tower and some other stuff, I feel like we could build him and make him really good. We do have some other doggos that are kind of cool, and we'll show them in a little bit. You'll be seeing them very soon. All right, let's go into the campaign real quick and check out the next 2 areas. So we've got Voldemort Strait, which has Templar. He is actually a really good provoke hero and a good tank. He's got block damage, which is pretty cool. And we've got the Deadlands, which is where you're going to get your other starting 5 hero from War Maiden. And you're also going to get Berserker, who's kind of cool. It just always reminds me of Clerks. Berserker. All right, let's look at these guys. So Templar and War Maiden. So War Maiden obviously is one of the starting 5. She's a great hero. She's got an attack that does a poison on her A1. She's got an increased attack on herself, and then places an extra attack if it's critical. This is really where she shines out is with her AOE decreased defense by 60%. So you can decrease the defense of an entire wave and then kind of just whack them with another team member that has a nuke, and you're in it. You're in it to win it. These are her masteries, basically down to War Master and some more accuracy stuff, so she can land her defense down. And then, yeah, we've got her in some mostly speed stuff. We started her in attack gear early on, but speed has become way more important later on in the game. So we do have her around like 140, 240 now speed, speed tuned with the teams. You can watch the starting 5 videos to kind of see more about that. But she's a really good hero. And as soon as you get her, I would definitely farm her out and try to get that in there. Farm her out. That sounds weird. I don't think you should be farming anyone out. Next one on our list, we've got Templar, right? He's another level 60, which we haven't really been using too much. He's pretty good. I mean, I feel like he has more uses than I use him for because I don't really use him, to be honest. And he is good for the Sacred Order faction crypt. We have used him there. His skills are interesting. He has a decreased speed. He does an attack 4 times and a provoke. He's got an attack with his default skill whenever an enemy places a debuff on him. So he's got some interesting skills. I think mostly the block damage and the provoke is probably the best skill he's got because he can provoke 4 enemies, hopefully, and basically just have them attack him while he has block damage. Now, my accuracy is low, so we probably would want to, get that higher to make him a little more effective. But he's a pretty good hero, and I think early on he's also going to do some reasonable damage. I've definitely used him like, just kind of messing around, trying to get through dungeons, and he helped me through a few things. Is he the best hero in the game? No, but he's not terrible, and I would say he's definitely on the list of heroes to build. And then the next one is Berserker. He's a He's an AoE specialist. He's a damage dealer. I mean, he fills the turn meter. If he hits crit, he grants an extra turn if the target's killed, and he does an attack on all enemies 2 times, and it'll ignore 20% of each target's defense. So he's going to put up some reasonable numbers in damage, but unfortunately, barbarians have so many good heroes that you should be building before him that he kind of gets overshadowed. And I think he's going to be a really good damage dealer once I actually level him and build him. I just think that he's gonna need some time, but I don't need barbarians right now. That's the other problem. He has spirit affinity, so he can help you get through some of the more annoying force areas. So in the early game, yeah, you might want to consider if you accidentally get him or pull him. I would see no problem in building him and using him for some of the earlier game dungeons. I think you're going to see a lot of damage out of him. If you can put some lifesteal on him, that might be your best option when you first start. Lifesteal is basically your best option almost all the time in the beginning of the game because then you don't need a healer. You just go in and attack everything and heal back up. So yeah, I would definitely say he's probably one of the better attack heroes, uh, but only build him if you don't have anyone else. That's really the point with him. All right, back into campaign. Now, we've already gone through Deadlands. We're going to pull these three right at the last time. So we've got some of the interesting ones. We've got Mck Stalker. We've got Flinger, both lizard guys. So those are all in Godfrey's Crossing. Hollowed Halls, you will get Executioner, who's another awesome defense hero. And then we've also got the finale here, where you can get Houndsspawn and you can get Diabolist. All right. Now, Diabolist is part of the starting five as well. One of the better heroes you can farm, which is nice. Let's go in and check these guys out. All right. So the lizards, they're the first one. So Mck Stalker. Mck Stalker's a little bit of a one-note pony. He has a sleep, which is very nice. See, he attacks one enemy, he has block buffs. He has a sleep for 2 turns, and he has a continuous heal if the incoming damage received is 20% in one attack. But he's really good for essentially Sand Devil. That's it. There's not much else I can use him for. We use him in the Lizard Crypt, and he's good for keeping one enemy asleep while you try to whittle down someone else. However, the problem is if he's too fast, which is the case on my team, I think, because he's faster than most of the other guys, is that he'll put someone to sleep, and then everyone else uses their AOE's and wakes them up. So you got to be kind of mindful of when his turn is versus how useful he's going to be. In Sand Devil, he needs to be fast, which is the suck part. But when you're using him in Faction Crypt, I would actually rather him be slower because then he can go at the end of the turn and put someone to sleep who's not dead yet. You know what I mean? And they won't wake up because everyone else attacked. So sleep's a little bit of a bugger in that respect. But he's a good hero. He's worth using for Sand Devil if you have no other sleepers. He can do it every 2 rounds, which is very, very effective in that fight. And you can get through it a little bit early on. The next one in the Lizard Crypt is Flinger right here. We just got him to 50 recently. His skills are max. He's kind of cool. We didn't do any mastery stuff on him. He's probably just going to be your basic War Master or Helm Smasher, basically into accuracy. His skills are reasonable. He's got an attack on one enemy, and he does decrease defense. And he attacks all enemies on his A2, and then he has an attack that always hits as a critical, which is nice. Obviously, more attack, crit, all that stuff. He's going to be one of those heroes again. You can use him early game if you end up getting him while you're doing your first run through of easy mode, normal mode, whatever it's called. And if you pull him, then yeah, you can put him on your team, and you'll have an extra attacker. He's basically Berserker. Him and Berserker are both really good attackers. Just remember, I would probably only pick one in the beginning because they're both Spirit Affinity. You probably only want to keep one. Not keep throw away, but I'm just saying use and build early on if you need someone who can do some damage. Both of them are going to be pretty good. All right, that's those two. Now the next one is Mr. Executioner, which we passed by before. Now he's an interesting cat. He can do some fun stuff, and he's good at AoE decreased turn meter. He has a stun on his A1, and he can decrease, like I said, decrease turn meter by 20%, and has a 50% chance of placing decreased speed, which is also good. And he puts a counterattack and increased defense buff on himself for 3 turns. If that was everybody, he'd be like a much better hero, but either way, he can increase his defense and do counters. I've actually soloed early game Spider with him. Nothing really past, I think, stage 7 or 8 he can handle, but at least with my build, I'm sure there's crazy builds out there that can do it. But yeah, he's kind of fun and interesting character. I think he's going to be really good in Knights Revenant for the Faction Crypt just because of his turn meter reduction on his AoE with the decreased speed. So yeah, you're going to have, I think he's definitely worth building. It's just finding that right set of gear for him because right now I kind of have him in a mishmash of stuff. So he's not super effective. We will have to go back and rebuild these guys eventually. And then the final stage, we have Diabolist. All right, she's in the starting 5. You can watch that video or her separate champion spotlight. Really good hero. She's got increased speed and some other stuff. She's got a sleep on her A1. She attacks all enemies, increases the speed of you guys, and then she fills your turn meter and decreases their turn meter. She's really good for keeping your team moving and getting them extra attacks during fights. You can keep her. She's supposed to be as fast as possible, so really speed is the only thing that matters on her. You want her to be like 200 and 250 eventually, but early game, just make sure she's faster. So if your whole team is like speed 120 to 150, just get her to 160 and you'll be fine. She just needs to be a little bit faster. It does not matter how much faster. You don't need to make her 200 speed and then everybody else, 120. I'm just saying she needs to be faster, and that's all that matters. If you can get her to 200 early game, that would be great because then you're going to constantly have her cycling turns and giving your other team more turns, which is not bad either. So that's also a good thing. But just put as much speed as you can on her, and I think she'll be a really good help to your team. You can put her in a stun set like I have, and that way her attacks will actually stun as well, giving her some crowd control. And then finally, the final heroes from stage 12. Now, Houndsspawn by himself is kind of whatever. All right, he has an attack that has a chance to stun. and he has a 50% chance of placing a 60% decreased defense, and he attacks twice. This skill, you have to have someone called Hellfang on your team, all right, which will actually ignore block damage buffs if the target has freeze. Now, this skill does not activate unless Hellfang is on your team. And this is a specific fight. I mean, a specific hero, what I would say, go back and watch the champion spotlight. It's Houndsspawn and Hellfang. It's the only champion spotlight where I have done two heroes specifically as a, like, not just like a one-off thing, but like as a champion spotlight where you have to see both of them to understand how they work. And that's basically what I did. And they are awesome heroes. I think these two together are probably some of the most high damaging heroes I have right now. And it's kind of crazy that they do as much damage as they do. You can watch some of my videos. You'll see that they pop up often in the city. They pop up in Faction Crypt. They pop up everywhere, and they do a ton of damage. And I love them. And this one's not even built that great, but Houndsspawn is built pretty well. I wouldn't recommend building Houndsspawn in the early game until you have Hellfang and you have nothing else better to do. All right. Yes, he's 73,000 power. He's really strong. Mastery is, basically War Master, a couple other things. We're not going to go into too much detail with him. Like I said, go watch the Champion Spotlight because you're going to see some really fun stuff. But these two are really good end game heroes for kind of getting through some content, and I think you'll have a lot of fun with them. I've had tons of fun with them in Arena and Live Arena. I've seen them just one-shot teams. It's crazy. They're awesome. And but I wouldn't build him, like I said. Once again, don't just build Houndspawn right from the beginning because he's going to be useless without Hellfang. So don't do it unless you get him. So that's basically all of the heroes that you can get from farming. I mean, there are going to be uncommons and stuff like that also, but we're not covering them. This is just the rares. And I figured I'd give you guys an overview of some of the heroes and which ones are useful, because I know a lot of you are going to be just running through campaign when you first start, and maybe this will be a help to you in helping you decide which heroes are good and which ones are not. You'll know the ones that are good by the ones that I've maxed, outside of the ones that I said I don't really use, like Eris and Conqueror. There's a lot of good heroes in the campaign, so don't think you can't get through content. You got plenty of options here to get you through some stuff, and I think you're going to have a lot of fun if you just use some rares. If you want to be a dummy like me and only summon mystery shards, then this is your options. All right, guys. So if that's it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. Tell me how you use your guys. If there's any campaign hero that you're having trouble with, or maybe you're just having trouble farming them and it's pissing you off and you want to vent, that's fine too. And remember, like, share, subscribe. You help the channel grow. We do a live show every single week, and I think this week will be God's Raid, so we'll see that. All right. So this is all the rare heroes in the Raid Shadow Legends farmable campaign. This is Mobile Gamer Nerd, and you guys take care.